Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of the Variety Gaming Podcast. Today's featured game is the sixth edition of Call of Duty Black Ops, and later we're going to be visiting the beta gamers with the Monster Hunter Wilds open beta that has come out for this weekend. Joined, as always, my lovely, partially facial haired, styled co host, Atrax. Tell us about the game.
It is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Developed by Treyarch, Raven Software, Beanox, High Moon Studios, Activision Shanghai, Sledgehammer Games, Infinity Ward, and Demonware. Published by Activision. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is a signature Black Ops across a cinematic single-player campaign, a best-in-class multiplayer experience, and with the epic return of round-based zombies. Developed for the PC, PS5, and the Xbox Series consoles. Released October 25th, 2024. Seriously, though, that was the description on Steam. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is a signature Black Ops across the... That's kind of lazy, but, that is kind of how this game is. It's I don't know if it's worth the full $70, everyone. I'm gonna drop a hot take right at the beginning of the episode. I think this game's worth more like $40. Rayu, what do you think? You think it's worth the full $70 there, Rayu?
I'm a big advocate for paying full price for games if they're up there in quality and nostalgic feel for individuals. I'm not going to lie, the fact that we have an epic return of round based zombies, that's already a problem for me. That should have never gone away. Um, to be honest, zombies was never supposed to be its own game mode if you want to go back that far. And the fact that they built zombies as its own, I want to say its own niche in the Call of Duty community, that they decided, okay, we're going to take away the one thing that this one community enjoys: high rounds, Easter eggs, and now we're just going to give them Warzone with zombies. So I appreciate the fact that they want to push the envelope. They want to try different things, try new things. Unfortunately, your Call of Duty, it's a very simple system and it's a very simple recipe that you need to follow. When it comes to zombies, we want wonder weapons. We want round-based zombies. We want good music. We want fun Easter eggs. And for those that are a little bit more into the lore of zombies, we would like the story to at least be somewhat consistent throughout the entire Zombies franchise. That being said, the multiplayer experience is something entirely different. Like myself, Atrax, you grew up on the original Call of Duty lobbies where you could just feel the hate for your family and you were a terrible person and all those wonderful things that were said. Again, the fact that they're trying to make it a family-friendly type thing or being respectable of players, and I feel that we're getting further and further away from the actual Call of Duty that we all know and love, and we're trying to recreate that, but then we're being met with bans and mutes and timeouts and whatever you want to say. So, $70? No. No, I wouldn't pay $70. I would wait until Christmas, be a Christmas noob where the game is on sale. Do it at that time, or get Game Pass, play it for however long you can, stomach it or what have you, and then, get rid of it off of your machine. But definitely not $70. Atrax, tell me about your experience.
So this game, to me, I did not buy it. After the fiasco with Modern Warfare 2, where they promised to support it for 2 years and then said, lol, JK, we're just going to release Modern Warfare 3. After that, I have officially decided not to support Call of Duty with my money anymore. I will not pay for the game. If my friends want to buy me the game because they want me to play it with them, that's one thing. I don't think the game is bad, but I don't think the business practice is great. And at least for what Call of Duty is. Again, $70 is just way too much for this game. I think base price should be $40. That being said, it's on Game Pass, which I think is cool. This is a great Game Pass game. Like, at no disrespect to other Game Pass games, but like this is perfect. I can pay a sub and I get a Call of Duty experience plus a whole bunch of other awesome games to play in addition. I don't think they should release Call of Duty every year for it's like sports games. I think everybody's sick of sports games releasing every year for $60-$70 premium price, and all they get really are roster updates. Like, it's why don't we just have one game and you pay a reduced fee like $40 for the next year's roster. So I don't know, like I just feel like there's a better way to go about doing it, and it's the same way with Call of Duty. That being said, this game itself, I would give it maybe a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. I think that the multiplayer is solid. It's pretty easy for me personally, coming from like Counter-Strike, where you have to actually think and, not just run in there and do whatever. This game's kind of simple to me multiplayer wise. I've realized that attachments matter a lot because they increase your time to kill. In some instances, they literally increase the firepower of your gun. So you like have to have attachments. It literally takes like less bullets to kill somebody with the same gun. So attachments matter a lot in multiplayer, which can be a good or bad thing, depends on how you want to take it. If you want to reward players for grinding out their guns and by giving them a literal in-game advantage, then that's cool. I think that's fine. And in-game advantage, I mean like outside of just increased accuracy and, like laser sights and stuff like that. I mean like actual damage increase. That's fine. Like, I guess that's how it is. I don't think it's very catering to like the average player, but I don't really know. Again, Call of Duty is kind of all over the place lately. Like you mentioned at the beginning, Rayu, I come from the era where like all the guns had maybe a few attachments and you didn't level them up. You had to do different challenges in order to get certain things. Like, in order to get the FMJ in Modern Warfare 2, you had to get kills through the wall, which was like actually ridiculously hard back then. Unless cheesed it and had a friend on the enemy team and then you just, farmed each other for kills or whatever. But obviously things have changed. Now you're leveling up guns, you're getting different attachments. There's like a million different attachments. I think there's like 5 or 6 lasers, there's like 4 stocks, there's 5 different grips, there's a suppressor, there's like a whole bunch of different stuff. I think there's like 6 mags that you can get. Like, it's just there's so many more attachments now. I personally think it's a little bit ridiculous, especially considering how the maps are designed. Again, for me, I always, coming from a Counter-Strike perspective, think in terms of engagements. So you have like lots of short range engagements. Do you have lots of long range engagements? How are the alleys and the lanes looking? Where's the cover positioned? How many different spaces? Like, when you swing an angle, how many different angles, how many like different corners do you have to peek and spots you have to check and stuff like that? Some maps in this game are atrocious for that. Like, Babylon is terrible. And there's a hangar one, I think it's called Subsonic, also just terrible. Like, these maps are actually awful. The map design is really, really bad. There are a couple of maps that I did enjoy. I think Skyline is probably my favorite map. I think it has a good amount of close range engagements, but you also have some longer range ones like through mid and over on the right side near the hot tub. And you have like semi close, more close range engagements if you go over towards the left side, like in the dining room area. So I think good and bad maps. Obviously, they've come back with Nuketown again, which, like everybody, no surprise to anybody. I didn't really play the campaign. I'm kind of over the days of looking to Call of Duty for a good story. Like, the original couple of Modern Warfares were good. The original Black Ops 2 was fine. World at War was fine. Like, the originals had some pretty compelling stories. I remember playing even the PlayStation portable version of Call of Duty, and that one was also had a pretty decent story with it. in terms of like this is what you have to do and the atmosphere that it created. I started kind of falling off with the stories when they got really, really ridiculous and almost, I would almost call them like Michael Bay movies, like just over the top cinematics. And you got exosuits now and these crazy VTOLs and space lasers and like all this stuff. It's, I don't know. If that's your thing, cool. That's not necessarily what I'm all about. I think it's a little over the top. But that being said, I think the campaign was decent. I wouldn't say it's the worst one. It's not like the Ghosts campaign or the Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare campaigns. I was really lost in those, but it's not quite to the level of the originals. But I mean, I don't think you ever really can get another moment like Shepard just turning on you and gooning all. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. That's my opinion on the campaign anyway. And then you mentioned it a little bit. My last little point here. I'm not sure what the identity of Call of Duty Zombies is currently. I like some of the ideas that they have. I like the idea that you can pack a punch more than one time for more credits. I like the idea that you can level up your tiers of your guns and also add different effects to them. I think that that's cool, but also at the same time, it's so far removed from what I originally thought Zombies was. Like you said, it went from being a bonus mode that you got for beating the campaign in World at War to surviving as long as you can. There were a couple of World at War DLCs which introduced like perks and some other stuff. And then in the Black Ops 1, you had a couple of Easter eggs and stuff. Then you had like the moon level, right, where you really started getting into Easter eggs. Then Black Ops 2 and 3, it was all about Easter eggs and special weapons. I remember like Origins, you're trying to, you could get up into the robot and then you could transfer over here and then you're doing like all of this crazy stuff. Oh, what was that? Der Eisendrock, where you had to run up to the doors with the dragon heads above them and you had to kill like 10 zombies and feed them to the dragon heads, and then they would unlock certain things that you could go and do, and like all of this crazy stuff. I have no clue what was going on in Black Ops 4 for zombies. Like actually no idea what on earth was happening in Black Ops 4 zombies. Didn't play 5. Apparently they removed it in 5 from what I hear. That was news to me, but here we are in 6, where at least for my first 40 rounds or however far we got to, it was running around. I thought it was really cool that you could upgrade your weapons, but then it felt like there were some of these Easter egg areas. Like there was the Pack-a-Punch room and all of this different stuff that you had to activate and all these different weapons you could build and whatnot. So I don't know. I had heard rumors that Zombies was in extraction mode in one of the previous Call of Duties. Maybe it was Black Ops 5. I don't know. But I think this is a better return to the more run around, just kill zombies, train them, that sort of thing. Maybe I just don't know what Zombies is anymore because I play so many other games and I feel like other games do zombies better. Like, I mean, obviously people say that Left 4 Dead is old, but Left 4 Dead is a great example. Back 4 Blood, that's the more, I mean, less popular, but more current version of it. Then you have games like World War Z with just insane mob mechanics that are more running around and defending. And then if you want to go for your like round-based stuff, you have games like Killing Floor. So I don't know. It's just, it seems to me like they're trying to do stuff and make it big and awesome while also not making it so overcomplicated. I think it's a good start, but also at the same time, I just wonder like I said, I just wonder what the identity is of Zombies. Are they trying to go for a mix of just round based and then Easter eggs? Are they trying to do more like in the past with more Easter egg stuff? They're just going to be building into it. Are they going back to the original World at War where it's more simple and focused on just surviving rounds? I don't know. Ray, what do you think? I think you have a little bit more experience in zombies than I do. I played a good majority of multiplayer.
Yeah, no, you brought out some good points just across the board with the game and how your experience has been with it. I'll start off just from the top instead of transition right into the zombies. The only thing that I really want to understand, and maybe our listeners can comment on it if they have a better understanding of it. What is skill damage doing in this game? Like, I thought it was a joke the first time I heard about skill damage, but no, it is an actual thing. If you're shooting in the chest, you're shooting in the leg, or what have you, your damage is reduced as opposed to being able to hit the headshots, which I understand. Don't get me wrong. That's how typical shooters are supposed to go. It's the same with Valorant, the same with Counter Strike. I hit him for 10 or I hit him for 20 or whatever. There's skill based damage ranges in those more tactical games. This is an arena shooter. This is run gun and just shoot the person in front of you. The fact that there is an advantage for those that can get to the heads faster or hold the angle a little bit better in this game mode. I don't understand why we have that. To be honest, if you want things like that, I would say just go play hardcore and leave core alone with that sort of thing. But I digress. It could just be that I'm getting older and I'm bad at the game. But I just feel it doesn't have really a place in the core Call of Duty side of things. And that's just because your core Call of Duty is going to be your older guys that are coming home from their 9 to 5 that jump on for a few times during the week and they're not sweating and trying to get, nuclears and all this other kind of stuff. But if yeah, again, I don't understand why it's in the core game mode. Just go play hardcore if you want something that's you have to be able to tick, just one little tap of your gun will kill somebody. The maps, on the other hand, they have been a little bit better than they have in the previous games. I know that, at least my experience with it, they're trying to get away from the traditional 3 lane maps. You're seeing a lot of maps that have these underground passages, long, roundabout ways to get to the back side of the map. Other times, like water, like even some of them have like a water lane you have to be aware of. Just stuff like that is really interesting to me. That I appreciate the fact that they want to experiment and again push the envelope with what they can do with their maps. But again, there's a very simple recipe. Make it simple. You have your long range, you have your short range alleys. The reason a lot of people like Nuketown, the reason a lot of people like maps like Firing Range from the original Black Ops, or and it's one of the more popular ones, and I can't even Shipment. There it is. The reason people like Shipment, they're fast paced, they're simple, they're not overly complicated maps with a lot of different angles that you have to worry about, or corners, or keep it simple. I mean, you can now that map voting is in the game again. People we were able to see, and possibly Call of Duty is going to be getting the information from this to see what maps are more popular than others and why, and they can correct these maps, possibly in the later stages of the game or even in the next Call of Duty edition. You mentioned about how the game is just repeating itself. I agree with that. I'm not a fan of the games coming out year after year, and we're getting these rushed, unpolished games that have these issues with them, and we're doing these hot fixes and patches day ones. And I can't tell you how many times I boot up the game and I'll have to do the shaders, and I'll have to do, restart required, and all of these things that just take away from my experience of the game. It's like I have to leave it on 24/7 to make sure all the updates are taken care of. The one thing I will say, the game modes this time around with the maps are, I'm not going to lie, a little disappointing. I'm more of an objective based player, so like I enjoy games like Hardpoint Domination. Uh, was it Headquarters? Was there before? I don't know if it's in this one. I haven't
Yeah,
I haven't really dabbled that much in multiplayer. But there's
headquarters is
one.
in this one.
Well, not just Headquarters. Was it Hardpoint? Oh, you said Headquarters isn't here. Okay, sorry, I'm all over the place today. Which, if you can't tell, I'm obviously not in my original setup, so I apologize if the audio sounds a little bit better. I am traveling for work.
That's how
Um,
diehard we are here at the Variety Gaming Podcast. We make sure, even when we're away from our home setups, we get these things recorded.
I mean, honestly. So, like I was saying, the game modes. There's one game mode in particular that I just haven't. seen in so long, and that's demolition. I haven't seen the demolition game mode since I want to say Black Ops 2. Maybe it was in Modern Warfare 3 later on as a patch, but demolition was a search and destroy type of map where there's two bomb sites. You have to take the bomb and plant it, and it counts down, and you only win if you detonate both sites. So almost like a well, no, it's not even like a Valorant or a CS:GO because you plant one and you get it. So that's more like search and destroy. But yeah, so I have not seen Demolition. That was one of my friend's favorite game modes in the game. I got into it because it was really cool. It gave us that mix of we have objectives we have to defend against. We could go around and do killing if we want to. It was a very fast paced atmosphere, but it took a little bit of strategy because if you committed everybody to A or committed everybody to B, well, then you just make it harder on yourself. And these are like 10, I think either like 10 or 15-minute time frames of these games. So like these games could drag out if you weren't prepared for them. It also forced you to change your setup. Like you had people running trophy systems that wouldn't normally. You had people running jammers, and you saw a lot more spy planes and counter spy planes and all of these other things that made the game more tactical and a lot more fast paced at the same time. The fact that that isn't back in here is again just super disappointing for me. Also, game modes like Capture the Flag. I haven't seen Capture the Flag in a long time. Was it there was a game that they had back in Black Ops 2. It was the ball game. I can't remember what it was, but you would take the ball and you had to run it to the other enemy team to score a point. You know what I'm talking about,
Oh,
Atrax?
like Oddball from Halo.
Yeah, kind of like oddball. You take it and you run, and then based on like you could slam dunk it for like 1 point, but then you could just like throw it for 2 points. So then you were sitting here trying to like pass it around to your teammates, and then you had some people that were there, there was a good memory. We called one of my friends the carrier pigeon because that's all he would do is grab it and he was running it. Like he was just running the ball while we were killing everything. So we just called it the carrier pigeon and we'd grab it like, where's the pigeon at? And you're throwing it to him to get him to run and score the points for us. But the fact that these like fast paced objective based game modes are not in the game, but these just solid objective ones. And what I mean by that is again your hard point, your control, your domination, your kill confirmed. I guess if you want to put that as an objective based, they're just. I feel like they're missing that extra oomph, and those are some of the game modes that I miss playing. The multiplayer atmosphere, though, I mentioned at the beginning, it's very different than other Call of Duties. In the past, it's more like a modern Call of Duty in the fact that everybody is, oh, good game, da da da. You don't have the people yelling in the microphone, talking about how bad you are, how bad your family is, and all this other kind of stuff that Call of Duty kind of is known for. It's more like you don't really hear anybody in lobbies. If you do, every once in a while, good game, guys, good game. And I'm all for being a sportsman. Like it's great to have good sportsmanship, but like have some fun with it. That's that PvP banter. No one means it seriously. It's just there to get under your skin type thing.
Yeah, I
Matrix.
miss that. I also miss the YouTube videos of that, like so many YouTube compilations. There's one YouTuber, Minnesota Burns, that I used to watch back in the day that used to, specifically on Black Ops 2, that used to like troll people. That people would get super pissed and be 1v1 me, 1v1 me. So he'd set up a 1v1 lobby that was like headshots only or something like that, and then troll them hardcore by only using like throwing knives or just talking mad crap and then being like, "Oh, see, you can't hit me," just like running around, and of course, it's headshots only, so you just aim for the head, and the auto aim on consoles back then was wild. So just, yeah, I miss good times like that, but I also understand the negative side of it, and like it is what it is. But I agree with you that I feel like bring the old, just trash talk people, like report them for cheating and that's it. That's, I miss the good old days where those were the only reports you'd throw out there.
Yeah, and I miss it, and we could go on and on about that. But the one thing I do want to talk about though is the skill based matchmaking with the multiplayer atmosphere. Now, obviously, these things are a little bit more commonplace to have skill based matchmaking. So you got your casuals with your casuals and all that. I do feel that there are some instances where it is very heavily swung one way or the other. I say that because whenever I play Call of Duty, I'll play it for like an extended period of time. So like I'll naturally just progressively get better. Like, okay, this is where people typically spawn. This is that, da 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 da, so on and so forth. Map knowledge and game mechanics just start coming back to you as you start playing over extended periods of time. However, when you get into lobbies with people who are playing this thing like 10 to 15 hours a day, and like you could see that they're ridiculously good at the movement and ridiculously good at aiming and all these other things, and their guns are all maxed out. They have all these attachments on top of them, like you mentioned, Atrax before, that give it that unfair advantage, almost where it's like, ah, I don't even want to play anymore. It's just not fun for me, and I know it's not fun for anybody else that would be getting into this as a, oh, you had one really good game and now you have this lobby. So that is something we could again go on about with skill based matchmaking and how it's have making it harder for casual players. But I think everyone's kind of on board or even against that. Everyone has their opinions. The multiplayer challenges, though, that's something I want to focus on just a little bit. I enjoy multiplayer challenges with like kills and with getting like score streaks or certain things like that. Whenever the challenges get to be a little too ridiculous or a little too, oh man, this is really hard, and it's very little reward for it. It'll be like the equivalent of you getting like 5 gamer score or a bronze trophy. Then it's like, ah man, that was really hard. Is it really that worthless for me to do that kind of a challenge? The one that comes to mind for me, if you're going for like camos and grinding camos and all that kind of thing, there's one for rocket launchers, and some of these rocket launchers do not have lock on, like the majority of them do. So whenever you're trying to shoot with that, it's you have to predict where the spy plane is going, or you have to predict where the helicopter is going to move, or all of these things. And then the point blank kills with and you could actually go on TikTok or YouTube and look at some of the people who are grinding camos. The point blank range just doesn't make any sense. It's like the barrel has to be down their throat for it to count as a point blank range kill. It can't be within a certain distance. So that's when I feel like the challenges are starting to get a little bit too much, a little too strict on what exactly you can and can't do with certain things. Even like the daily challenges, like today, one of the daily challenges I had was to have a wild card equipped, danger close. I had to have danger close equipped and get 10 kills with lethal equipment. Well, if you go into this thinking, oh, I'm going to go with a grenade or I'm going to go with a Semtech, I got news for you. It ain't going to work the way you think it is because it's very, very difficult to land those grenade kills. But I was able to find out that the thermal grenade, because it does take up a little bit of an area and it ignites when people are firing, gives you a little bit of an advantage, and you can do it pretty quickly. So those are the things that I guess if they're trying to lean you towards like experiment, play with the different things that you play with the different tacticals, or the different lethals, or the equipment, or what have you, then cool. But don't make it to where it's like, oh man, I'm used to playing with a combat axe. This is crazy. I can't get these kills, and you know, it, the challenges just I feel need to be changed a little bit more. You had mentioned before about the attachments back in the original Black Ops. Some of the challenges that you had were also contracts that you could pay for with the in-game currency. You would pay for those contracts. It would be like, oh, get 25 kills in 10 games. Okay, well, that's fairly simple. You pay a little bit of money, you'd get that money back, and then you would go and you would pay to unlock the camos, and then you would pay to unlock, pro perks. Back when it was Sleight of Hand Pro and Scavenger Pro, Flak Jacket Pro, all of these different types of pro perks, you had to pay the money to get them. Well, you had to complete those challenges to get the money to get the perks, and then you had to do so many challenges with those perks to unlock more things. So I feel like just the challenges are a little bit more restrictive, a little bit too strict on what you need to do for them to be completed, and that's something that I feel needs to be adjusted. But into the zombies part, the zombies maps are pretty good for the 2 maps that we do have. I will say I am more of a fan of Terminus just because Terminus is more of the dark atmosphere that I'm accustomed to when it comes to the zombies. Recently, the zombies have gotten a little bit more bright and you can see everything, and great for the casual person, great for somebody who's new to zombies, but it doesn't give that true zombies experience feel. I mean, World at War, it was a dark blown up room that you were sitting here having to fight these zombies when they were crawling out of everywhere. Nocturne Toten in Black Ops when zombies actually was its own game mode. It was a dark, theater that you were fighting in. Moon. Very little did you have any of these bright open world maps. It was more close quarters and fighting. So that's something that I hope that they do add more zombie maps and they make them a little bit more dark and spooky. Um, so that's something that I hope that they do adjust in the future with the maps. I will say that even though it is bright and cheery, I do find that there are a lot of opportunities to run zombie trains in the other maps, just because it is more open. And I was a very big fan of Cold War zombies, which is where we started seeing the plating up. I don't know if that was the first instance we saw multi-tier pack a punch, but we did have the multi-tier pack a punch. The different perks, the doors were a little bit more unique, things like that. But the atmosphere with zombies is changed. I know you mentioned Atrax that you're kind of unsure of what's going on and what's happening. I hope that they are trying to steer back to more of the original, where you just try to survive higher rounds. But after running Terminus for so long and seeing, and I could be wrong with the name, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. If it's Terminus, and then there's another zombie map that I'm probably forgetting the name of. Uh, but the one where you could spawn the boats, and they recently had a patch where the boats, when they're blown up, they despawn, and because there was the exploit where you could put the boat and block the path, and you could go for higher rounds using that exploit. Um, the addition of adding vehicles into it, even that's actually on that map. There's the extraction point. You have to get in the vehicle. You have to go to the extraction point. And these are things that, again, I'm not that big of a fan of. I understand it's there so that way you can end your round, but again, coming from the original zombies days, you just went down. Like, okay, we're done. We're kind of done playing the game. I'm going to intentionally go down here on this next map. So the fact that now it's like, oh, you have an exfil so many rounds, and then you can still go down if you want to. But the exfil is just, I feel it's just another system and another part of the game that's just a little bit too much. It just doesn't need to be there. Like, if I'm going to go down on zombies because I've hit a time limit or what have you, then I just need to go down, and that's what it is. Um, so, as far as the Easter eggs, I do like the addition of multiple Easter eggs. I want to say Black Ops 3. No, I take it back. I take it back. The original Black Ops had a second Easter egg in it. You had the original Easter egg with the teleporter and everything and get pack a punch, but then you had the Easter egg for the music, and you got 115 to play, which was really cool. Black Ops 3 was the same thing. You got Mad Hatter from Avenged Sevenfold to play if you shot the little coins in the different areas. So little Easter eggs like that are pretty cool. I like it when it's not something that does change the flow of the game. One in particular in this zombies is if you find all of the action figures, you get to turn into a superhero for one round. Again, I just I don't like that. I don't like that sort of thing. Leave it as a trap. Don't. It changes the pace of the game, in my opinion. So that's just something I don't feel is necessary. Also, I think it was Cold War Zombies had the additional Easter egg of the zombie coffin dance that was a meme for a while and incorporated into zombies, which was really cool. That was great to see that they continued that over into this one. If you're not unsure with what I'm talking about, there is another Easter egg where you can go around shooting all the bowling shoes that you find, and then you get to go play bowling in the bowling alley there, hitting the zombies. The more points you rack up, the better rewards, so on and so forth. So like those little Easter eggs where they're like risk reward type thing, they're pretty cool. But it's just the superhero thing that I just don't agree with. It needs to be taken out of it. Now, the zombie challenges, those are always fun. I do appreciate the challenges, so many headshots with guns. Now, what's really cool about the challenges now, because we have the weapon, we have the perk mods, we have the weapon mods, and then you have the field upgrade. You can research any one that you want. You can only research one at a time for those upgrades, and they will upgrade those perks even further. So I'm talking like, for example, the Deadwire one that I've started focusing on upgrading. The Deadwire perk is you upgrade that. I think it's you get dead, you get Electric Cherry, which if you don't know, that was whenever you reloaded, you had an electric area that went around you. It would stun or kill enemies. Those are things that are really cool that they're bringing it into this game, and it makes it a little bit more interesting to play zombies and to progress further in rounds because then you're getting rewarded for playing longer rounds. You're getting rewarded for continuing to go back and play. And then you have to. I also appreciate the fact that you can't just get all of these upgrades at once. It's like, no, you have to progressively get better at it. You have to progressively unlock these things, and then you'll be rewarded with it. And then you have to have so many unlocks done, and then you'll get access to start researching the other stuff. So that's something that's really cool with the zombies challenges, and I appreciate those. And I'm just really excited for Black Ops 6. I hope now, as of right now, fingers crossed, there is no battle pass in this game. There is not one. I hope they do not bring back a battle pass system because as long if they could leave it as DLC, leave it as purchasable DLC like they did back in the old days, where you got the extra zombie map, you got the extra multiplayer maps. You want to add some camo stuff. I remember back in the Black Ops, you got it was either Black Ops or Black Ops 2, where they had the bacon, and your gun would have a bacon camo and a bacon player card or what have you. Like if you want to do that, that whatever. But let's not add a battle pass to the game. Let's leave it out.
Yep,
HX, any final thoughts
please.
before we move on?
Yeah. The other thing that I want to say, it really upset me, is trying to install BO6 on Game Pass, like on the Xbox app. It tried to install Modern Warfare 3 as well, 180 gigabytes on my system, as opposed to the 50 that I needed for the multiplayer and zombies for Black Ops 6. Please do not do that. I do not want your garbage MW3 game that was supposed to be all of the extra content for MW2 that I paid for. Please stop doing that. It's upsetting. Just install the one game that I asked for, please and thank you.
All right then. Well, you heard it. Just give me the one game. Speaking of give me the one game, it's time for an update from the front line. And I think I speak for all of us when I say I'd like to report a murder. I don't know what happened. I went to sleep. I woke up and the map is majority blue now. I I just
Yeah.
what happened?
I did some fighting in the Deadlands, and a lot of people are dead. 7.5 million dead, to be exact. 49 real days into this war. The Wardens are crushing us now, 24-9 for the Colonials. They only need one more. The Wardens only need one more victory point to win. So that is sad. Sad to see the Blueberries make it all the way back. I honestly thought we had it, but couldn't capture any of the coasts, I think is what happened. And also, I've heard that Wardens are late game faction anyway. I don't actually know. I've never been in a war. This is just my first war, Captain. But we're gonna get them next time. That's pretty much what it's going to be now. Everybody who is remaining on the Colonial side is just trying to not be the last victory point to fall, which is always a fun little extra like tide of the war that turns. As opposed, it's not necessarily that you're hoping for your fellow members to go down, but you don't want to be the last one to fall. Shout out to Robert Loves Games for giving me that little info, courtesy of one of their videos. But yeah, it's been fun to like hop in now at the very end and just see what it's like as everybody's running around trying not to be the last one to fall. So we'll have to see what happens, and we'll have to join up more in the next war so that we can get those wardens back.
Yeah, we're certainly going to give our best. I know that right now morale is low. Just like you said, nobody wants to be the last point to fall. And if you look at the map, hopefully HX has it pulled up on the video for everybody so we can see it. It's rough out there. And if you want, you could go back and see the entirety of the war and see how things played out. And I can understand, supplies were probably running low and support was waning. in certain areas, and because of that, the lack of supplies, the lack of support is just easy to see how we got overtaken. I hope that next time we do learn from this war and we're able to take away a better strategy, take away a better route. I would like to, point out that while we focused solely on going right up the gun to fight them, they focused more on the outer edges, and that kind of pulled us back from the main fighting force. So that's something that I hope we see, we look at, we reevaluate, and we get the Wardens back in the next one. So speaking of next one, we're going to go ahead and move on to our beta gamers segment of the show. Now, the Monster Hunter Wilds beta came out. There's PS5, PC. It's an open beta for you to jump in, and it's a very short beta. As far as story is concerned, you can go back in and play a little bit more, hunt some more monsters. After you finish the campaign mission, it's just one little quick act one that you get to do and see. So, Atrax, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so for those of you who have followed the show for a while, or even if you're new to the show, we covered this episode in, I believe, episode 11. We covered it last season in season 1. And I really enjoyed World even when it came out. It was a lot of fun, and now years later, also super, super fun. I think it is a classic Monster Hunter World. So going in, you could say I'll always compare it to Monster Hunter World, but I try very hard to keep it separate as its own thing. I think that the opening sequence is really cool. The way when you're running in the sand and on your mount and you're shooting the pods at these creatures that are just like flowing through the sand, almost like dolphins. They're just like, like swimming in the sand, and then they dive up, and then like, it's really, really cool. I would argue that your character is a little OP. There's someone who's on the ship with your weapon, and they throw the weapon in the sand, and you just run up and you grab it, and then this monster lunges at you, and you just shing, like goon it right in half, which again, it's a cool opening sequence. But as opposed to Monster Hunter World, where you're kind of this like clumsy, bumbling, there's this giant T-Rex looking monster that comes at you, and you don't necessarily know how to fight it, and you have to run. And like that, to me, that opening sequence makes the monsters feel scarier and more threatening, as opposed to the Wilds opening sequence, where already you're kind of have this measure of power and control. You can grab your weapon, your reflexes are strong. You're not necessarily like bumbling over anything. You save a little girl from this giant sand pit. Like that, in comparison to World, where you are, and even other Monster Hunter games where you are more underpowered and you need to respect some of the monsters and you need to grow into that. That being said, some of the monsters that you face in the beta are pretty formidable. And I don't know, I'm assuming that they wouldn't put you right at the very beginning of the game. Maybe they did, I don't know. But I'm assuming that your character hopefully faces incredibly big monsters for how strong they start off, at least in terms of this opening cutscene. I hope what I just said makes sense. But that's my comparison. Is just like right off the bat, I was like, whoa, all right, my character is sick. Let's go. The graphics look really good. The frame rate is great on PS5 and PC. At least in my experience, it runs well on my machine. However, some of the combat is not great. Not as great as the graphics, in my opinion. Specifically, the Kinsect Glaive. Again, comparing it to World, which is what a lot of Monster Hunter fans will know and probably compare it to, it felt sluggish. The combos didn't feel as fluid and as fast. And maybe that's just, you could argue, oh, skill issue. You just need to get good with the new stuff. That's true. I'll give a little bit of points to that. But a couple other people have mentioned the same thing, specifically with the Kinsect Glaive. The combos just don't flow together as well, even when you're just standing, not even fighting anything. And the way like you jump up and then you get one attack and then you have to land, and it's very hard to string combos in the air as opposed to World where it was a lot easier, at least in my experience, right off the bat. Not even, having much skill, just oh, okay, I can launch myself into the air. I can click one, two, three buttons before I hit the ground. I can even do an air dodge and maybe an attack or two. But then in Wilds here, it's like you jump up in the air, maybe you get an air dodge and one attack, or you just get like one attack before you land. Maybe you have to upgrade your Kinsec glaive so that you can do more. I don't know. Regardless, right off the bat, does not feel nearly as fluid as previous games. That being said, the creature design, super good. Creatures are a lot of fun to fight. They look good. I think their attacks and their animations make sense for the type of creature that they look like. This big, bumbling, frog looking thing is going to just kind of be like hopping around and slamming his fists on the ground and using that frog tongue to try and eat the hunters. But yeah, a lot of the attacks just they make sense. The animations are good. The diversity of the creatures is also good, at least in terms of this beta. The creatures are great, but then the combat controls are not great because you can't adjust them. Yes, they have a couple of different options, but you can't adjust the keybinds for your controllers, which is not ideal. I understand if you're keyboard and mouse, you can do it, no problem, but in World, I could adjust my controller bindings, no problem. And now here we are in Wilds, and I can't adjust my controls. I feel like if the game is on PC, or really in general, AAA games should allow custom keybinds. I'm not sure why it would be a whole lot of extra development and difficulty. Maybe it's something that I don't know, but yeah, customizable inputs in 2024, I feel like are a must, especially for a game like this. Whether you're on controller or on keyboard and mouse, because my dodge is on A as opposed to B, and I can do it, it's fine, but it's not fun. And you could argue, oh, well, just change your action button. Yeah, but then my action button is on the wrong like it's just let me customize the controls and things will be fine. But I would give the beta maybe a 5.5. Graphics and creatures are great, but the combat and the controls being kind of whack really, really take away from how this game plays, at least in my experience. Ray, what about you?
I mean, I'll be honest. I think this might be the title that's going to get me into Monster Hunter. I played
Really?
Worlds for a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I played Worlds for a little bit when it first released, and I enjoyed it, but I was just very overwhelmed by just the amount of weapon choices, the amount of armor choices, how the hunting system works, and it was just a lot to take in. And especially at the time I was playing it solo, so I never really revisited it to try and learn. Especially when at the time there were also other Monster Hunter type games that had a much more simpler system. Dauntless was also big at the time that Worlds released, so I gravitated more towards Dauntless just because it was a little bit simpler. But now that I've found a group of people that enjoy playing Monster Hunter, and everyone's been excited for Wilds, this is what I'm gonna say. Again, it could get me into it. Now that I went through Worlds a little bit further, understanding the mechanics, going into Wilds with the story and seeing how the tutorial kind of gives you a little bit, but not too much to go on. And the combat's pretty good. The story to the point that I got in Act One was really nice. I really did appreciate that. It was really cool to see. It's like, hey, you're protecting this child. You're coming back as a seasoned veteran, and you had mentioned it before. Before you're this bumbling, stumbling newbie, and now it's like, oh, now you're here. We need you to protect this child and get them back to their land and all that kind of thing. It was cool. The opening cinematic was really good. I enjoyed it. Love the sand and how it's like, oh, well, they're all like agitated. What are they chasing? And you zoom in and you see it's another child. So it's like, oh wow, okay, that's really cool. The one thing I will say is that the little shooting the pods, and it's like to reload the pods while you're in that specific scene. It's like you're grabbing from these flying monsters, and I'm like, that's a little bit weird. I didn't understand how that worked. It kind of took out of the immersion a little bit there because I was like, okay, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
So, but other than that, I thought the monsters were really cool. The ones that we did fight in that act, the big late fat, I don't even know what it was called, just the big turtle looking guy that we fought at the very beginning, the end of Act One. Can't remember his name, but he reminded me so much of one of the characters from, or one of the monsters from Dauntless, and I thought it was hilarious because he had very similar kind of attack moves, and the armor, the points where you would damage him with his arms and his leg, or I guess all four of his legs, his tail, his head. I was like, that's kind of weird. It's almost like the same beast, but okay. I did appreciate the wounded mechanic being added in. I don't remember that being in Worlds, so that was cool. The fact that you could go ahead.
I was gonna say you could break off their shell pieces and whatnot, but you didn't have like the vision to see the wounds that you could hit.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know you could break things off, but it was just having that wounded. It's like, oh, I could keep hitting this one leg or this tail or their head, and I would get a little bit more damage. And I think there's even a wounded like combo that it had you do, where you would hit. I think it was RB or LB, and it would do this little quick little wound combo that was really cool. So that's something that I appreciate. They added that into the game. I also like how you can mount. That's something that's really cool. The fact that you can mount onto things early in the game. It's not something you have to do post game or later on, like in Worlds. It's right out the gate. You can mount on top of something, but then you could use your abilities while you're mounting. And I don't mean abilities. I'm sorry. It's items. So like for me, I chose to use the lance, so I needed to use the whetstone. So being able to jump on top of my mount right away for a minute to regroup, use my whetstone while I'm riding, pop a potion, jump off, and then go right back into it. I was like, I like this mechanic. I like how it's not, overpowered in the sense that, oh, I can just hop on it and run, and I can still use all of my abilities and weapons. And now I'm fighting mounted and all of that thing. No, it's just you can get away, regroup, and come back in type thing. That was really cool. I appreciate they added that in the game. Another thing that I appreciated is the tracking feels better. Whenever you're tracking the beast, it felt better this one than it has in Worlds. With Worlds, you had to open up your map, you had to go in. I want you to track this one, and then your little flies would go track it for you, and you could follow them that way. This one, I didn't feel like I needed to do anything like that. Just again, first act, there's not a whole lot to it, but it feels a little bit easier to track where these monsters are going and where you can fight them at. So that's really cool. The controller support, one thing I appreciated about the setup stages of the game, at least in the beta, was that when you're setting it up, you have your visuals, you have your audio, you have all of these things. But then it's like, okay, you're using a controller. What controller setup do you want? And it gave you a couple of different options. You had Xbox controller with different instances where you could use your two buttons, you could use your D-pad. You had Xbox controller. Then you also had mouse and keyboard support. So really supporting all of the different, controllers that you can use for this type of a game. Now I know you are upset that no, I can't rebind to B. It needs to be B. And
Yeah, what Ray was referring to, by the way, is the menu. It will show what type of like the icon for the buttons. It's not like an actual controller layout. It's just what the menu will say for the buttons. You have Xbox,
no,
PlayStation, and I agree that is cool.
yeah, I guess you're right. I guess it is the menu layout. But the one thing that I thought was interesting is that the center buttons. So I guess what would be like the options and the start button on control on PS5. It makes it to where you could use those for Xbox or you did not use those for Xbox, which I thought was interesting. I
See,
hadn't seen that.
yeah, I used the original, the Xbox 360 layout with the back and select button.
That's crazy. But yeah, so stuff like that I think is really cool. It's whatever you're kind of comfortable with that with your layouts for those. Um, I love the lance. I'm not gonna lie. I'm having a blast with the lance. I didn't try it in Monster Hunter Worlds. I used the two-handed sword, not not the great sword, but it's the big katana. That's what I was using. I don't know what it was called, but that's what I was using in Monster Hunter Worlds. So I was like, man, I really want to play more defensively. I want to kind of get into that role again, being the people's tank, and because I've been playing that in Throne and Liberty, and I was like, man, I really kind of miss being that front line. I'm going to take all this damage and let my DPS just do their job while I'm fighting it. So, and that's another thing I appreciated too. The questions that you answered kind of steered you in the direction of what weapon you should be. So whenever you answered her questions, I went like just straight down the defensive tree, and it's like, oh, the lance is the perfect weapon. I was like, that's really weird. What happens if I choose something else? And I went down another one, and then they said, oh, the greatsword would be greater. Oh, the big katana would be great. And I was like, that's really cool how it kind of like gives you it takes away the complexity of the weapons and says answer these questions real quick and still immersed in your interaction with the npc, so you're answering them and it's like, oh, this would be a good weapon for you. So I settled on the lance because I was just a little bit more defensive, and I'll be honest, that thing is a lot of fun. I had no idea it was near as fun as it is. The fact that I could sit there when the beast is charging and just drop my shield and just take the hit, and it's just like, yeah, cool. Now it's my turn, and then spear back at him with the lance is so cool. I like the combos to the lance; they're really fun, really simple to get a hold of. Again, you're just there to eat damage. And again, that's the way that I'm going to go into it if we do play wilds, and if we do cover it on the show, because it just feels necessary. I feel like you need to have someone that could just absorb the punishment. So, Atrax, anything else you want to add on the beta gamers?
I will be pre-ordering this game and getting it. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I will be getting this game. Well, yeah, look at that. Even my dog is like, no, don't pre-order it. Pre-ordering video games. No, I'm just kidding. I will be probably pre-ordering it, at the very least, getting it after it comes out, because as much as I complained about the Kinsect glaive, they did say in this beta that they are trying to get as much feedback as possible. And I will more or less believe that they will accept the feedback, hopefully, in terms of how the gameplay feels. And, I mean, they already got it with World. So if people say, hey, we want it to be more like World, then maybe they'll make it that way. I don't know. But I think we'll be covering this game for sure, because I had a good time. As sad as the Kinsect glaive was, I had a good time with it.
It's interesting you went straight to the pre-order there. I was gonna jump on. We had breaking news right there. Atrax talking about possibly pre-ordering a game. If you've listened to him before, he's very much against pre-orders. So whatever they're doing over at
I'm half and
Capcom,
half.
you're
Half and half. Half and half on pre-orders. All right. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
okay. Okay. Well, Capcom, whatever you got brewing over there, apparently it's cooking for Atrax. So we'll look forward to covering the game and hearing exactly if he does pre-order it. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to episode 18 as we went through our experiences in Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and talked about the fun times we had in multiplayer as well as the zombies experience and our thoughts on that. Also, appreciate you guys hanging out while we brought an update to you from the front lines of our game of the season with Foxhole and then our beta gamers where we talked about Monster Hunter Wilds. So, do us a favor, answer this question. Are you playing Black Ops 6? Yes, I bought it. Yes, on Game Pass. Or I'm not playing it. Thank you again for listening. Find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. Rate the show. Give it a like. Subscribe on any platform. And tweet at us on X at Variety Games Pod. We'll see you in the next one.